Session 2 of End of Course Review, Progressivism, Imperialism, World War I, and the 1920s. Progressivism is an extremely important unit where we talk about fixing the problems of American society with government, with labor practices, business, and overall just the health of society. We use that term SEAM to be progressive license to talk about the goals: social welfare, economic reform, efficiency, and moral improvement. Along the right-hand side, you can see some of those reminders of the examples of this. Settlement houses trying to provide education, healthcare, jobs, and temporary housing, find them housing. Unions, court cases, laws being passed to change business and the practices there and enhance the ability of the American citizen to have a healthy life in terms of their economic lives, how they work. Efficiency is where we use a lot of scientific experimentation, data, and work to try to make our lives faster and easier. Inventions such as the typewriter, speed communication, assembly lines, and the conveyor belt with Henry Ford make work life easier and we can produce more goods faster. Moral improvement means that we are trying to become healthier in terms of how we make decisions and how we live our lives. The biggest movement being the prohibition or temperance movement. Women suffering through domestic violence issues. Men go and drink, they come home, they beat women, they beat children, they commit crimes. And so women saw this as a moral or choice-making movement that if they ban alcohol, we would have a better society. Some other key people to understand who they are and their importance is the term muckrakers or journalists who try to expose these problems to society in order to create some form of change. Teddy Roosevelt, building what is known as the modern presidency, this strong single individual that's kind of the leader of the government, even though constitutionally that is not their role. Important for him is to see and understand the square deal, his ideas of how to help citizens, and he was very forceful about pushing these through Congress and creating this square deal. Consumer protection being that Meat Inspection Act, Pure Food and Drug Act, which cleans up some of those industries, and then especially conservation, where we see the development of the national park movement. He believed that people needed to be able to be outside and experience that sort of lifestyle as well. Woodrow Wilson is the other major progressive president that we talk about a lot, and his big goals were, first of all, isolation or out of World War I, and then financial regulation is his other big area that he works in, and you can see the establishment of Federal Trade Commission to regulate stock market, and the Federal Reserve Bank to control currency and interest rates. In terms of governmental influence, progressivism helped the people have more power in their government and do some things. The 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th Amendments are all worth reviewing what they do. Notice that 2 of them enhance our ability to elect or vote. One of them deals with prohibition of alcohol, obviously, and then federal income tax. We wanted all of these social programs, so we needed a way to pay for it. So those 4 amendments in the progressive era. Other ways that people were able to influence the government or have popular sovereignty was the initiative, the referendum, the recall, electing more publicly minded officials to remove some of that corruptness that had been there, and then suing and using the court system to get what they needed, those 2 court cases in particular dealing with their economic lives. Now into imperialism, which is Module 6. The causes or the reasons the U.S. wanted to do this, all 3 very similar to what we studied as freshmen in modern world history. We believe that we were racially superior to these places, and we must show them how to be civilized. We were a new military power, and we wanted to show off this great technologically advanced fleet of ships that we had built and demonstrate that we were becoming a world power. We also were the world's producer. We were the manufacturer of a lot of goods at the time, and we needed markets to sell our products in, and we needed materials to make those products. So those are the three causes for. Lots of people in the United States were anti-imperialism, and this shows some of their arguments that were against being undemocratic. It was anti the Declaration of Independence, and it was not an economic necessity to go and control people just to buy and sell with them. Another term that is very important to see and understand with imperialism is this idea of the Roosevelt corollary. It's an addition to the Monroe Doctrine that's told Europe that they were no longer to colonize in Western Hemisphere, our part of the world. What the Roosevelt corollary adds to this is now a military threat. We will step in and be a police force or a military force to protect our interests anywhere we decide. This is known as Roosevelt's big stick policy. He's going to negotiate. He's going to talk softly to you and treat you nicely, but he wants you to understand he has the U.S. Navy guns pointed at your head if necessary. Big event of imperialist era is the Spanish-American War, and you can see that this is where the United States helps several different places to fight off the imperial power of Spain, and we win this war. These places get some measure of independence, but also a great measure of the United States controlling those areas. Most importantly, we see Cuba being a protectorate with an amendment to their government being forced upon them, Puerto Rico becoming a territory of the United States still till today. Guam and the Philippines both very highly needed as a refueling station for our naval vessels as we want access towards China and other parts of Asia. One of the causes that's important to remember is yellow journalism. This is where journalists take stories and exaggerate them or completely make them up in order to incite anger or fear so that it was more likely we would go to war. A couple of other places that are important to note in this era that we are trying to gain some influence in. John Hay writes what's called the Open Door Notes, requesting and demanding that China open up to U.S. for trade. They have been a very closed country. And then Hawaii, where we've got a lot of sugar industry and pineapple and other kinds of fruits that we desire. And so we've got some businessmen that go in and overthrow the monarch, the queen that rules Hawaii. And the United States later annexes or just kind of brings into our country Hawaii. It'll become a state much later in our historical study. We also want this as a Navy base, a refueling station once again. And that is located at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, which most of you should have heard of. We'll talk about that at World War II. Now into World War I. Where the United States' first goal was to be very isolated and stay out of the involvement of these European issues. We wanted to deal with our problems here at home. We have several different reasons for our entry. Zimmerman telegram tries to get Mexico to incite a war with us, and then the Germans sink the Lusitania. We have a lot greater ties to France, Great Britain, Ireland, Scotland, and so that was reason for entering with them. Importance here at home, we see that the Selective Service Act is passed once again, another draft, because our military was quite unprepared to fight this war, and we needed more people. A man named Schenck protests this Selective Service Act, creates pamphlets and speaks out that this is against the 13th Amendment. It's involuntary servitude, a form of slavery. And so he is speaking out quite vocally against the draft. He is arrested for sedition or speaking out against the government, usually protected under free speech of the First Amendment. However, the courts rule that he can be convicted of this all the way up through to the Supreme Court, where we see the establishment of the idea of, in times of clear and present danger to national security, our personal civil liberties can be limited. Clear and present danger being the important words there. Some of the effects, both during and after the war, during the war, our economy does tend to prosper because we are devoting all of our resources to the war effort. We have to build the equipment, we have to make the clothes, we have to make the food to provide to the soldiers. It is extremely difficult to fight a war of this kind, and it requires a lot of economics, so we can put a lot of people to work doing that. One of the groups of people who benefits from this, obviously, is women. If the men are all going over to fight the war, we need somebody in those factories, and women are able to demonstrate that they're capable of doing this work. At the end of the war, we have some more isolationist moves that we do. Again, we don't join the League of Nations. This massive couple of different Greek agreements, the Washington Naval Conference, Kellogg-Briand Pact, and Nine Powers Treaty, all are different parts of the world agreeing to reduce armaments. We see a couple of other developments socially. We see African Americans saying, if we just fought in Europe for freedoms and civil rights, why are we not getting them here? We see women saying, look at all that we did for the war effort and everything, so they get the 19th Amendment. But we also see this frightening nature of we were involved in world events and we want to pull away. So a lot of anti-immigration, a lot of KKK, a lot of Red Scare or fear of communism, since the Russians revolted and created the communist state during World War I. Our last section, the Roaring Twenties. The biggest idea to understand here is this clash of a new, fast-paced, liberal, urban lifestyle versus the old, traditional, conservative, rural lifestyle. So a lot of things that we'll see here, just new way of life versus old, traditional versus liberal, conservative, liberal, okay? Boom of economics. We are doing great. We've got lots of money. We're able to buy things, and we are producing things for all over the world. In terms of African American culture, it is a very, very important period for them as well. We see what's called the Great Migration, where they move from south to north for jobs and to escape discrimination. This has been on every single end of course test in OGT since I was in school. This Great Migration helps to produce the Harlem Renaissance, a celebration of African American culture where they decide that they are able to explore what it means to be African American and celebrate this. Once again, we see this idea of civil rights being brought forth, a group called the NAACP, or National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Their goal is to fight for equality and civil rights for African Americans. And so they say, we fought for equality during World War I. Why are we not getting these rights at home? Once again, important to note that one of the responses of this questioning and demand for civil rights is a huge growth in the KKK and anti-immigrant types of attitudes. So, very short review of a lot of topics, and you can see here on the list, and this is not everything that we have went through this year, but it is important to kind of go through and look at these things, reflect on some of them, and try to understand how and why they're important to our overall study. Go back through the slideshow on your own, looking definitely at the blue highlighted areas in order to focus on the most important aspects as you need to. Once again, thank you very much, and I hope this is helping you in some way.